Good morning, everybody. If you will, go ahead and get a Bible and let's look at the 118th Psalm. We'll be starting in the 5th verse, Psalm 118, verse 5. As you're doing that, with the other hand, if you would like and share the post, and we will get started into this passage. Again, this psalm is a lengthy psalm that deals with being persecuted, deals with dealing with when what do we do? And one of the hardest things I think for believers to do is when we are trying to live right, when we're faced with criticism and with adversaries, that is a really painful struggle. I'm trying to live right. I'm trying to do the right things. Why is it that I'm having to go through, this persecution? Why am I dealing with, why is the Lord allowing this to happen? You've not only, I was going to say, heard those things, but probably at times in your life felt those things. And the psalmist is no different. He is, here he is. He is a Jew. He is one of the chosen people of God. And it's a question that Jews have wrestled with for hundreds of years, longer than hundreds of thousands of years. Here we are, God's people. Why are we having to endure what we're going through? And the other piece of that is, I think that there's probably not much more we do that influences others than how we handle those kinds of persecutions and attacks as believers. And so this psalm is an example of how the psalmist chose to do that. In the first few verses we looked at yesterday, kind of the opening, the call to worship, if you will, was just a reminder of the goodness and the mercy and the unending love of the Lord. Now, in verse 5, he's going to start and tell us really what he did, how he handled this situation. And he's going to, and as the people sang this, the people were really given a testimony about how good God had been to them during their difficult times. The time they're referring to here in this psalm, when they talk about their time of trouble and trial, would have been the time they spent in their years of captivity, 70 years of bondage, captivity in Babylon, and then finally being released and coming back, finding their city destroyed and having to rebuild their city. And so they are acknowledging God as being faithful to them during that time. And so in verse 5, he says, I called upon the Lord in distress. The Lord answered me and set me in a large place. And so, and again, we have seen this repeatedly coming through the Psalms. And I know maybe you may be, if you've been listening along, watching along, you may be getting tired of hearing it. But there's a reason I think that God keeps repeating this lesson in the Psalms. I called upon the Lord in my distress. And I think there are multiple lessons there that God is trying to get across to us. One very very basic lesson is that God wants His people to call on Him in times of distress. He wants to hear about their burdens. He wants to hear about their afflictions. That God wants to hear those things. And some people, I think, need to hear that God wants to hear from us. Then the other side of that, another side of that, is that it's okay to go to God and tell Him our burdens, tell Him our affliction, to tell Him my time of distress, as the psalmist calls it. And so, just like a good parent doesn't object to their child coming in and telling them when they hurt, telling them of their issues and problems, God Himself wants to hear from His children. And then again, the other lesson there is that we do go to the Lord. Unfortunately, that's something we need to be reminded of as well. That we do go to the Lord with our burdens. We try many times to fix them, to deal with them ourselves, try to handle our own circumstances, try to manage it, and then when everything else goes wrong, then we want to, when all else fails, we go to God. It's kind of like that saying, when all else fails, follow directions. I still remember a school teacher in elementary school, talking about what a messed up way of thinking that is. Why wait till all else fails to follow the directions? Why not follow the directions before everything fails? And so I think there's a reason God keeps repeating and keeps hammering home this truth. The psalmist, we've seen it time and time again, repeated, I called upon the Lord. And so this morning, let me encourage you, plead with you even, that whatever, there's no burden, no problem in the child of God's life too big or too small for God. That God cares, God hears, He wants to hear. He wants to hear. And again, don't think that there is anything in your life that is too small or too bad. There's nothing you can say to God that I guarantee you, there's nothing that we could tell God about that He hasn't heard before. And we have to remember, God knows everything, sees everything, so He already knows. And we just need to cry out to Him for help in our time of distress. And so whatever you're facing this morning, I just want to, again, and I know I've beat on this, but the Psalms beat on it. The Bible just keeps bringing it up, that we go to Him when we are in times of distress. And then the second half of that verse tells us why. The Lord answered me and set me in a large place. That He intervened. The Lord had set His people free from Babylon. He had brought them home and brought them to a large place. And when He talks about a large place, He's talking about a situation. He's not talking about large necessarily acreage-wise, but to a good place would be another way of putting it, to a place where they could have joy, where they could have peace, where they could live life to its fullest. That is what it means by He brought them to a large place. And so today, as we just look at this one verse, because there's such an important lesson for us in this verse. In my distress, I called on the Lord. And so don't wait till you try to figure it out yourself. Don't wait. I love that little phrase. I called on the Lord in my distress, not after my distress, not when I had figured it out myself, but in the midst of my trouble, I called on the Lord and said, today, whatever it is, big or small. And I know that we have folks watching and listening from all different places in life. We have folks who listen in from other countries. And so everybody listening this morning, you're going through something different. But I promise you today, you're not going through any distress or any burden that our God doesn't want to hear from you and is waiting to take you and put you in a large place. Have a good day. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning.